Hello once again and welcome to our course introduction video. So today I'm going to be introducing you to the course itself. What are some things we can expect from this course? What are some philosophies behind this course? Why will we do what we do? And what will we do this semester? So please watch this video. First thing, you have to log in our Moodle page. So I'm not going to tell you how you can do that because I think you already figured that out by now. I think you have already watched the tutorials, so I'm not going to go into that. So you can read this. Begin to read this one. This is our course overview. And we're going to be talking about this also right here. So first thing you should do, download the course syllabus. It's downloading. Let me just download that. And it goes to my downloads folder. All right. So this right here is our syllabus. So I assume that you already downloaded it. Now let me just go through the syllabus with you and try to explain some things, but at some points I'll just be reading and try to explain a little bit, okay? Normally I would discuss this in the class, but since we can't do that and I don't want to do it live, during the class because I want us to use that time to introduce ourselves to each other a little and at the same time, if ever you're gonna have any questions during the discussion of the syllabus, then we can address them in the class. So, with that, let's get started. So, welcome to the English Intensive Training. Welcome to a year of an exciting journey towards becoming a more globally competitive leader. Okay. So, what is EIT? EIT is a special program that IGSL offers to students like you who need to develop your language skills necessary to fulfill your requirements for your graduate studies. You know that being at IGSL, being in an academic institution like IGSL, requires you to be proficient in English. You will be writing papers, you will be reading different reading materials, different books, and you will be listening to your professors. You will be participating in your classes. So that requires you to have a high level of English proficiency, and that's what we're gonna do in the English intensive training. We're gonna equip you with those language skills and at the same time academic skills so that you can do well in your studies in IGSL. But more than just surviving IGSL, EIT seeks to develop your English proficiency so that you can widen your influence as a leader. Because we believe that better English proficiency for is for greater influence. That is our battle cry. Better English proficiency for greater influence. You and I, you are we are leaders in our own rights, and we are called to be part of the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations, and we believe that English can help us with that. If we are able to communicate in English well, knowing that it is the global language, then we can be able to influence more people, right? So that is our goal, to prepare you not only for your academic for your classes in IGSL, but also for the life you're gonna have outside of IGSL. And we also call it intensive because you will be focusing on developing your English every day inside and outside of the class. That means even if we are not having classes, we will be engaging in different activities that you can do offline so that you can keep on improving in your English. So to speak, you will be breathing English. Yeah, that is our goal. English will become a part of you. So after a year, after a school year, you will be more proficient in English and hopefully you will be in love with English. In addition to that, EIT is also going to be a year-long two-term training. So we're going to have 2 semesters, and in each semester, we will focus on different skills. Like in the first semester, we will focus on your fluency. In the second semester, we will focus on building your accuracy. Now, you might be asking, what's the difference between fluency and accuracy? Well, when we talk about fluency, think of someone who is able to express himself clearly and in a way that can be understood by others. Like in a practical sense, someone who is fluent in English can speak fast. Someone who can, you don't need to think about grammar or vocabulary. It just comes out. It's fluid. It comes from the word fluid, so it's automatic. But just because someone speaks fluently in English doesn't mean that he or she speaks accurately, because someone who is fluent might be making some mistakes once in a while, right? Or he can be making a lot of mistakes, but still, he could make himself understood. So, in other words, the first level is fluency, and the second level is accuracy. And we are aiming for both. But before we can go to accuracy, we have to build your fluency first. So that's what we're gonna do in our in the 2 semesters of our training. So with that being said, what should we expect? Across Asia, English is taught in a traditional way. When we say traditional way, it means that the teacher lectures about grammar and vocabulary, and at the end of the course, the students will know a great deal about the English language, especially about grammar, but unfortunately, they can't use it well. Hopefully, this was not your experience. But if it is or if it was, then we will make it different for you in the English intensive training. Because in EIT we believe that we learn the language not by learning about the language, but by using it. That is our goal. We don't want to just sit down in lectures and know about past tense or present perfect progressive, something like that, and not be able to use them. Our goal is to be able to use them, to be able to communicate well in English, because that's what language learning is all about, right? So in other words, one might know how many tenses there are in the English language and name each of them. That would be amazing. But the problem is that same person cannot use them in speaking and writing. So in EIT, we try to use the language a lot, as meaningfully as possible. In EIT, you will be provided with real opportunities to practice what you are learning. More on that when we go to the specific areas or skills that we need to develop. Okay, now that you have an overview of what we're going to be doing in the English class or in the English intensive training, let's now go to the goals. What are our goals for this semester or for this school year? So here is what we call our EIT graduate profile. We pattern this to IGSL's graduate profile. So after you graduate from IGSL, there are some things that IGSL is expecting from you to have become. In the same way, in EIT, these are our faith goals. You know, after we go through the English intensive training, these are the things that we will be able to do. So at the end of the English intensive training, I will be two things: English proficient and at the same time academically ready. So our goal primarily is to help you with your English. But it's not just about English. We're also going to be helping you to become academically ready. You might be very functional in English. You can speak, you can engage in conversations, but it doesn't mean that you are also academically ready. In IGSL, the English level that is required of you is academic English. It's not just conversational English. You should be able to write papers and different kinds of papers. You should be able to read different texts from different authors. So we want to prepare you for that. So that's what we mean when we say academically ready. And at the same time, aside from being English proficient and academically ready, I can first write intelligibly and accurately. So when we say write intelligibly, that means we can understand. Your professors can understand what you're writing. Okay, it is clear what you mean. And of course, accurately, you're able to write with correct grammar, with correct spelling, correct vocabulary, and many more. And at the same time, speak fluently. I already explained that. Speak clearly. That means understandably or intelligibly. And at the same time, confidently. So one of the things we want you to become is we want you to become a confident speaker. Confidence is very important in using the language. And that I believe you will be able to develop when you go through the English intensive training. And of course, we also want you to be able to improve in your reading in such a way that you will be ready to read any text with understanding. Because in IGSL, you will have a variety of books that you will be reading. And we want you to be able to read all of them with understanding. And the last one is listen with understanding. You will be sitting in your classes, you will have professors from different countries, and we want you to be able to listen well and understand what they're saying. So these are our general goals for this school year. I would want you to print out this page. You don't need to print the whole syllabus, but this page, I would want you to print it out and post it somewhere so that you can make it a matter of prayer. This is our faith, these are our faith goals. And at the same time, you can keep yourself motivated because somewhere along the way, you might lose motivation. Like, oh, I'm not improving in my English. I'm doing my part, but I think I have reached a plateau. But looking at these goals will remind you that we are headed to to a specific destination. We have a goal. We have goals that we want to accomplish in the English class. We're not just wasting our time here. We are not just keeping ourselves busy. We have goals that we want to reach. Okay? So I want you to print this out and post it somewhere that you can always see. Okay, in the next page, you can see these are our specific goals. So the first and the second page, I showed you the general goals that we have in the EIT class. And in the third page, you can see the specific goals. So for example, like here, it's very general, right? Read any text with understanding. But here you can see, what does that mean specifically? Now, these are the skills that we want you to be able to develop at the end of the year. Now, we will go through these skills later on, but for now, I would want you to take a break, as I will also take a break. Yeah, so go ahead, take a coffee break, stand up from your seat, pause this video, and just refresh yourself for a little while, and then come back after 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and then we can continue with each of these skills. All right? See you in a bit. All right, let's move on to the first skill, which is reading. So the question that I have for you is, are you ready for academic reading? Now, how do you answer that question? Well, there are some specific questions that I want to ask you in order for you to, if you're able to answer yes to all these questions, then that means you are ready for academic reading. If not, it's okay. That's what we're here for. We are here to help you become ready for that. So the first question is, can you get the big picture of the passage or book you're reading? So this specific skill is what we call scanning. And can you understand passages even if there are some words you don't understand? If you're able to do that, then you're able to use what we call context clues. And can you find specific details in long passages? You know, sometimes your professor will ask you, okay, tell me what did the author say about sin, for example, and you can just skim through the passage to find specific details. And can you read and understand a long passage in a short time? So that in itself is a skill. We call that speed reading. And can you critically read and evaluate information? So that's what we call critical reading. Now, if your answer to these questions is no, don't worry, because we are here to help you to answer yes to all these questions. These are the basic skills, reading skills, that we're going to be addressing this semester and in the next semester. So these are the very things we will be working on during the first term. Reading is part and parcel. That means it's an important part of your academic life in IGSL. Your professors will normally give you a lot of things to read, especially now things are online, right? Your classes are going to be online. Well, we don't know next year, hopefully not. But right now, your professors are using what we call asynchronous learning. So they will be giving you reading materials instead of having classes. And they are expecting that you would be learning from those materials, from those reading materials, even without classes. So if that's the case, then you will have to really improve your reading. And many students actually get overwhelmed with that kind of setup. But this doesn't have to be the case if you develop the necessary reading skills. I would say that this is probably the most important skill that you would have to develop in order to be ready for your classes next school year. So in the first semester, especially in the first part of the first semester, we will be focusing on helping you read because it's also foundational. It's also foundational. Later on, we will learn why I say it's very foundational. And as they say, great things start from small beginnings. In the English class, we'll be taking those small steps together. So don't worry about that. Now, the big question is how? How do we start? Well, we start with pleasure reading. Yeah, that's supposed to put some smile on your face. When we say pleasure, happiness. Why pleasure reading and what is pleasure reading? So according to a research by one of the people I highly respect, Dr. Stephen Krashen, when you read for pleasure, when you read for happiness, that is actually the key to developing foundational reading skills. Yeah, so if you want to learn how to read in English or in any language, then you will have to read for pleasure. So that's according to Dr. Stephen Krashen. Not to mention, well, we will expound on that much later, okay? We will be talking about it in the first week because I will be asking you to listen to your first listening assignment from AJ Hogue. So he's going to be talking about it even more. I'm not going to be talking about it now. Not to mention, pleasure reading is the key to good writing skills and grammar skills. In other words, the more you read and enjoy reading, the more you will naturally improve in your grammar and writing skills. And this is not my opinion. This is backed up by many studies done in many parts of the world. So, pleasure reading is key to or foundational to language learning. You cannot learn grammar well or writing well if you don't read. And specifically, if you don't read for pleasure. So we will start off by reading biographies. Why? Why should we read biographies? So what kind of reading material is enjoyed by everyone across cultures? Storybooks. In our case, we will be using 3 biographies of men who were used, there's a grammar mistake there, who were used mightily by God to impact their generations significantly. First one is Hudson Taylor. So this is a story, we're going to be reading the biography. By the way, when we say biography, it means the life story of someone. Hudson Taylor, which maybe some of you are familiar with, the founder of China Inland Mission, Adoniram Judson, the first American missionary. That's quite interesting. And of course, one of my personal favorites, George Mueller, the director of orphanages in England. So the first 2 are biographies. The last one is an autobiography. When we say autobiography, that means it was written by the person himself. It was written by George Mueller. So these are the books that we're going to be reading in the first semester. Are you excited? I hope you are excited because I have personally benefited from reading these books myself. And I hope that you will also be challenged and inspired in your faith and at the same time learn English along the way. Yeah, that's what we are trying to accomplish here. Learn English while having fun. We want to make it meaningful. We don't want to learn grammar all day, although that's very important. But we want to learn English the natural way, and this is one of the ways we can do that. Okay, another way we can learn reading, or we can learn grammar, or acquire some vocabulary, or acquire some writing skills, is by what we call extensive reading. Extensive reading. Now, aside from pleasure reading, we will also be doing extensive reading this semester. Extensive reading simply means reading a lot. That's why we call it extensive. Intensive is focusing on one thing at a time, but extensive is quite different because your goal is to be able to read a lot. So why do we want to do extensive reading? Well, extensive reading will for this to happen, if you want to be able to read a lot, you will need to read below or at your current level. In other words, you should read a lot of easy or easy reading materials. And by easy, we mean those that you will not be needing dictionaries for. As you will be learning later, this is very powerful for your vocabulary development. Many people think that we learn new words by studying the dictionary. Seriously, some people would do that. Like they would pick up a dictionary, okay, I need to learn some words today. They will open up a page and then try to read words, try to memorize some words that they think would be helpful for them, so they know the meaning, they know the words. Or some of them will try to come up with a list like 20 words a day. I need to be able to learn 20 words a day. But you know that according to research, that is not the most effective way of learning vocabulary. Yeah, so I know everyone is doing it, but it doesn't mean that it's the right way to go. If you want to learn vocabulary, you have to learn it in context. In context. So for example, I'm reading and I saw one word, okay, and that word stuck to me. Like, oh, okay, this is an important word. I think I would want to check my dictionary and find out the meaning. And you did. You found out the meaning, and your brain will easily remember that. You will be able to easily remember that word because you learned it in context. Yet the next time you encounter it, you will remember that, oh, I know this word. Yeah, this word was used in this chapter of Hudson Taylor's biography, and the context was missions. So this word is connected to missions. So your brain is making connections, and that's very important in language learning or in vocabulary development. If you want to learn new words, don't try to come up with a list of words that you want to learn. Instead, read and read a lot because you will be learning them in context. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we do now that we were able to answer the question, why do we do this? Why would we go for extensive reading? Now let's answer the question, how? Thankfully, we have access to Newsela. Some people will read it News ELA, News English Language Acquisition, but I prefer to read it as Newsela. It's up to you. It's a website that offers different articles in different levels of difficulty. You will be assigned 2 articles a week, and after reading them, you have to accomplish a reading report. You can find this in Moodle, which you can download in the reading section of our Moodle page. So more on Newsela, I have a separate tutorial right below this video. You can find it. So you can watch that and find out how you can navigate your way through Newsela in order to do extensive reading. Okay, that's it for reading. Why don't you stand up first, take a deep breath, stretch a little bit, and yeah, maybe you can go out for a while. If you can, take a rest. And then after that, we'll move on to writing. All right, welcome back. So, right now we're going to be talking about the second skill that we want to develop in the EIT class, and that is writing. So, on top of the reading assignments you're going to have in IGSL, writing lots of papers is another aspect of one's academic life that drives most students crazy. Every week, an IGSL student writes an average of 1 to 2 papers per subject. So that's a lot because that's only for one subject. If you're taking 3 subjects, then that could be a maximum of 6 papers in a week. This can be demanding, especially if you don't have the foundation in writing academic papers. So EIT seeks to prepare you for this kind of challenge. Now, let me ask you this question. How prepared are you for academic writing? And again, we have a set of questions that we can ask ourselves so that we can find out how prepared we are for academic writing. The first one is, can you write much in a limited time? Because you're going to be writing a lot of papers in IGSL, right? So you cannot spend one day in writing a paper. You have to be able to finish a paper in a short amount of time. And the second is, are all of your sentences intelligible? So we have had professors complaining in the past about some students' papers because they can't understand them. So if they can't understand them well, they cannot grade them well. So what happens is they end up grading their papers in terms of, um, or asking someone to edit their papers first and then grade it for content. And the professors don't have time for that. So we want you to be able to write sentences that can be understood. Are the words you use in writing appropriate? Now this is very important because in English you can have the same you can have words with the same meaning but used in different ways. That means you cannot use them both in the same context. So you have to be able to choose appropriate words for your writing. Also, can you write a deep reflection paper? So, can you write a reaction paper that reflects critical thinking? Can you summarize a passage or a whole book? So, these are some of the questions. They're not comprehensive, but if you're able to answer yes to all of them, then you don't need the class. You don't need to attend the class. But if you don't, then that's what we're here for. We're going to be helping you answer yes to all of these questions. Okay, now in this part, remember I told you about fluency and accuracy at the beginning of our video. So this is the time I'm going to be expounding it a little bit more. If you notice, the first 2 questions above, like these 2 questions, address your fluency. If you're able to write much in a limited time, and if your sentences are understandable, then we're talking about fluency. There are 2 levels we need to consider when it comes to writing and also speaking, the same thing. Fluency and accuracy. So fluency is, as I said earlier, is simply the ability to express yourself quickly and clearly in writing. The same applies in speaking. Accuracy is about the correctness of your grammar and vocabulary in writing. And this is the higher level. The problem with many language learners is that they focus on accuracy first instead of fluency. So, what do? They study grammar a lot instead of focusing on their fluency first. That is why we have many Asians who can name the different parts of speech in English but cannot use them correctly. Do you know someone who is like that? Yeah, that's a problem with the way English is being taught in different schools across Asia. So if we want to improve in our writing, we have to start with fluency first. Okay? Now, the question is, how do we develop fluency in writing? As I said earlier, it's reading. It's reading that makes a difference. Now, let me explain that. Language experts establish a strong connection between reading and writing. A person who reads regularly will develop his grammar and writing skills faster than a person who studies grammar directly. They have some studies to back this up. In other words, you can study grammar a lot, you can do that, and yet not be able to write better than a person who reads a lot. Like I have read some studies where they compared those who were reading a lot uh, from those who were doing direct grammar study, and at the end of a certain period of time, those who were involved in reading, engaged in reading, improved more than those who were studying grammar instead of focusing on reading. So that's why in EIT we will connect writing activities to reading tasks. They're going to be connected to each other. So the question now is, how do we do that? How do we establish a connection between reading and writing? It is through writing reading reports and journals. So language experts establish a strong connection between reading and writing. A person who reads regularly will develop his grammar and writing skills faster than a person who studies grammar directly. So to establish the reading writing connection even more, you will be answering questions in your reading report, which you can find in our Moodle page, and journal later on. Journaling is one proven way to improve one's writing. You might not see your improvement instantly, but slowly, without you realizing it, you will improve in your writing as you slowly will be able to adopt new grammatical patterns and vocabulary. The idea is you read something, okay? And you're you don't just memorize it. You don't just try to keep it in your mind. You try to use it immediately, because if you don't use it, you lose it. Okay, let me repeat that. Use it or lose it. You can immediately use grammatical patterns or vocabulary which you learned from your reading through writing your reading reports or your journal. Okay, now what about grammar? What about grammar? As mentioned above, we will not be focusing on grammar this term, at least in the first part of this term. We will do that in the second term when you have developed enough fluency in writing. However, there are a few grammatical points that you will master as you read the books assigned to you and go through the English classes. They are the following: basic tenses, nouns and pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions. So we are going to try to learn them automatically as we read. Okay, let's try doing that. Now let's talk about your writing portfolio. What is a writing portfolio? Portfolio simply means collection. So in this case, when we say writing portfolio, it means a collection of your writing projects. So we're going to have 10 writing projects throughout the term. All right, let's go through each writing project quickly. Writing project 1 is about writing your personal testimony. So you will be writing about how your life was before coming to know Jesus and how you became a Christian, the changes you saw in your life. And in writing project number 2, you will be interviewing your ISG leader. So I'm telling you now so that you can prepare for that. And basically you're going to be asking him about what his life was before IGSL. And after that, you'll be writing a story about him. So the first two writing projects are what we call narrative essays, which is important for you to master because you're going to be writing you're going to be writing that in IGSL in your classes. Now, writing project 3 and writing project 4 are summary papers. Another skill that I want you to develop this term is how to summarize. In this case, you're going to be trying to summarize a chapter from the biography of Hudson Taylor. After writing a summary paper, you are going to write a reflection paper, which is probably the most common paper you will be writing in IGSL. This is for writing project number 5 and writing project number 6. The only difference is that in writing project number 6, you're going to be combining summary and reflection paper. Writing project number 7 is only going to be a reflection paper, but the difference is you will be reflecting on an article, not on a story. And writing project number 8 and 9, you will be introduced to the basics of essay writing. Essay writing. This time it's going to be expository essay. It's not going to be narrative essay. And in writing project number 10, you will be writing still a narrative essay. In fact, you will just be rewriting your writing project number 1, but this time it's going to be a little bit more advanced because you will learn how to write an introduction and conclusion for your narrative essay. That's it. So these are the writing projects we will try to accomplish in the first semester. By the way, you can notice that the deadlines of these writing projects are not here. It's because I will be announcing the deadlines in our um, weekly Google Slides in our Moodle page. So you don't need to know that right now. Okay, we are done with writing. Why don't you take a stand-up break again for a few minutes and come back when you are done.